clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Those YouTube shorts been cooking lately. Check out the YouTube page, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because our guy Mike Didino and myself, we've been in the lab a little bit, but in the lab right now is Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, and hopefully OG's in the other type of lab getting some hyperbaric chamber treatment on that hamstring. But what a freaking game. The New York Knicks in game 2 take down the Indiana Pacers in perhaps one of the more grittier, if not the most grittiest win of the season for this team, which feels like blasphemy because of how much grit they've shown throughout this entire season and through the postseason to this point. But here we are, Cody, thinking that we had a lesser intense series on our hands, and I have a heart rate of a $180. Cody O'Connor, the Knicks win game 2. What's up, brother?
They almost got a double-digit win. That is almost unprecedented for what's going on. But, down double digits at half. Jalen Brunson, you don't know if he's coming back. Oh, great, he's back. We're coasting. We're playing well, right? Things are looking good. Let's just throw an OG hamstring in there because I think the Knicks fans got a little too relaxed for a half a second there. I think too many people let out an exhale, and so they had to throw something in. So, great to be up 2-0. You pray that OG is going to be back and healthy. The Pacers have really fought early on, but it's been the Knicks' ability to close out the game that has gotten them to this 2-0 lead, man. And golly, Jalen Brunson just, I don't know how many times I can say it. The guy is just on an absolute tear right now. The only thing that kept him from 40 points was, playing less minutes due to injury. Unbelievable.
It really is something special watching him just come off that injury and come in the third quarter. You felt the gravity shift, just him being on the floor. Even before he started scoring and impacting the game in the traditional ways he does, the energy just completely turned, and that third quarter went incredibly well for the Knicks. And we're going to talk about all this different stuff, from the Brunson, Hart, Devo, the OG, the Hartenstein, who played a great game, to the Pacers, who are playing well in a lot of facets of the game. And whether it's a lack of firepower, whether it's a lack of that late game comfortability, I'm not sure what it quite is yet. Maybe it's the home court, and maybe we're going to go to Indiana banged up even more, and it's going to be a whole different scenario here. But we're going to break all that stuff down. But Cody, before we even get into it, I was thinking to myself throughout the game, why can't we have nice things? Why can't we have nice things? But I realized that's the wrong way to look at it. We have a nice thing. We have a team that plays to the absolute maximum effort every single game. And we saw it all year for 82. And I don't know why we would have expected anything else. Now, yes, are we losing some nice things with Brunson getting the sore foot, Julius Randle out for the season, Mitchell Robinson basically out for the season, Bojan Bogdanovic out for the season, now OG Anunoby possibly out for an extended period of time. Yes, some of those nice things are out the window. But the nicest thing about this team is that they grind to the max. It's actually something that we have not seen here in our lifetimes in New York City. And it's coming to the point where, yeah, we may have some bad luck here. We may have some bad luck there. But we know absolutely, unequivocally, this team is going balls to the wall.
Yeah, I think I've said this before, but this is your father's New York Knicks. Like, this is
literally
the tape that they're showing to the youth kids. Like, this is how you box out. This is the importance of rebounding, of going the extra mile, of, diving on the floor for a loose ball. They have 5 guys on the floor that are always going to do that. And Hartenstein embodied that late in the game as he dove on the floor to the corner. Your 7-footers doing the same thing, kept possession for them. And it is those little things that add up, and especially late in games that can kind of turn the tides for you, because it is, coming down to a possession or two in not only the start of this series, but obviously that whole 6-game series with Philadelphia. And that's why this team has just been so likable all year, and they continue to do that. There is the next man up mentality. Precious Achiuwa gets kind of thrust into a few more minutes tonight with some injuries and has some huge offensive rebounds, scores 8 points off the bench. And it's so fun to watch, so enjoyable, and nothing you can take for granted.
And I love that you say it's not your father's Knicks, because I mean, off the top of my head, I could think of a few people, I'm sure you can too, who are in our father's age range, right? Even my boss at my job, he was a season ticket holder in the 90s, saw some of the most incredible moments that ever happened in Madison Square Garden. And due to life, due to the game changing, due to this and that, he fell off the Knicks a little bit. He happens to be a Villanova graduate, so he happened to get dragged back in at the second half of last year. And this year he was all in, and he literally is all in. He's back like it's the 90s again. And that energy is so palpable. You feel it in the arena every single time they take the floor. And I think it's fair to say that for a lot of people. And for a long time, I blame them. Oh, the NBA is still great. The NBA is still great. But I get it. If you're not an NBA fan, you want your Knicks to be your Knicks. And they are playing the way that any Knicks fan of any era should be absolutely proud of, which is a beautiful thing to say. As you're not a true Knicks fan. I know you're a Knicks supporter, Thunder fan, your family's Knicks fans, whatever. I'll drag you into us for this one here. But in our lifetime, there's been the slightest pockets of positivity. That's it. Pockets of positivity. And now we've seen a year of very goodness. And now we're seeing a year of near greatness. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. The series is 2-0. It ain't over. We know that, especially with all the injuries. But this feels like a real run, a real team, a real organization. And anyone who's been a Knicks fan at any point in their life, they're getting sucked back in, because this is absolutely what Knicks basketball is all about.
And you could really say this for New York sports. Like, you're right. I am a Thunder fan, support the Knicks, watch them closely, love what they're doing, and absolutely love this team. But, I think of it from the Mets perspective. 2 years ago, they win 101 games. And then the following year, they're out of the playoffs. They're sub 500. They did not build off of that success. And that's what you were hoping to see with the early steps of the Julius Randle era onto Jalen Brunson and so on, was that they were going to build on success. The Giants just 2 years ago, 2022, Daniel Jones gets the big contract. They go to the playoffs. Next year, they take a step backwards. Even the Devils just did that to me this year. So I'm very used to my team looking like they're set up for success and then falling back down. And the Knicks just haven't done that. They've done the exact opposite. And that, again, I'll keep saying it is so fun to watch night in and night out.
And now it's time to bring us back to reality just a little bit here, because I think it's easy for us to sit here with our New York Knicks caps on, and I say that quite literally and metaphorically because I'm wearing my Knicks hat. With the Sixers series, there was a lot of back and forth between fans. Obviously, they're closer in proximity. I know you probably have Sixers friends in your lives. I have them in my life. We're texting, we're jawing, we're having fun, and we're hating each other, and we're loving each other. It is what it is. With this series, you don't feel that quite as much because of just proximity, right? I don't know a Pacer fan in my life, and that's normal for a New Yorker to not know a Pacer fan. I'm sure some Pacer fans know some New Yorkers. It's just the nature of the beast of America, of New York fans and whatnot. But is there anything in regards to the way the Knicks play, the way the calls are being made, and the way the energy is moving around this Knicks team that you think Pacers fans have legitimate gripes on? I don't know what Pacers fans are saying right now, but do you think there are things where the Pacers fans are watching this Knicks team saying, I absolutely hate them, they are scum, they play dirty, they do this? Or do you think this Knicks team has a universal bit of respect, the way they play and the way that they grind?
I think there's always going to be a little bit of both. If you're the team playing against this Knicks team, you're probably talking about Jalen Brunson flailing and flopping all over the place for fouls. That's probably something you're saying. And I don't know if you could say anything is dirty about how Josh Hart plays. He just plays so damn hard. And I'm sure you could talk yourself into it if you're that type of a fan. But it's kind of difficult to say, because I think for years, people who haven't liked what they've seen from the NBA product were saying this is the type of team that they want to see, essentially. They want to see guys who care, who are going to dive on the floor and go the extra mile and do that extra thing. And that's why they love the college game. But now you're mixing in the skill, the athleticism, the just unbelievable talent of the NBA with that heart and that tenacity that college players have brought over. So there's people that are going to find their ways. We've both seen it, whether it's online or in-person conversations, especially online. But, you're gonna have a hard time making that argument a good one for you, because this Knicks team is just, they're so likable.
Yeah, and I do agree. And I think the one thing that bodes well for the general just competitiveness of this series is like, it ain't like the Pacers ain't playing physical either, right? McConnell's all over Jalen Brunson coming up the court. They're also playing physical. I don't feel like the officiating has been one-sided. I'm sure a Pacer fan would say otherwise. I also feel like Carlisle absolutely picked the wrong spots in this game. Like, he got wild over the Hartenstein double dribble. Now, I'm sure his sentiment was, you can't just call something and change it, but they do that in the NBA all the time nowadays. But that was not a double dribble. They showed it back. Even Reggie Miller said, nah, that wasn't a double dribble. And Carlisle from that point just kind of spiraled out of control, which you don't see him do very frequently. And he got booted out of the game. We'll see if that means anything for him moving forward. Probably not, but whatever. And I think they kind of picked the wrong time to start acting like they're getting the bad calls, because there was tons of things that weren't called in this games on both sides. And I thought in a positive manner, because it really let the boys play. Was I saying to myself, oh my God, McConnell's all over him every time Brunson's bringing the ball up? Yeah, I did. Was I happy that they didn't call every one of them a foul? Yeah, I was happy they didn't call every one of them a foul. They probably could have called one or two. It's all good. We love to see this. This is the physicality we love to see. And frankly, Brunson didn't get a bunch of floppy calls today. He's gotten a lot more in a lot of other playoff games. So I think that argument isn't exactly valid for anyone who would throw that out there here either. All right, off that now. Let's talk about the ebb and flow of this game. P. Kennedy, Cody O'Connor, Subway Sports Talk. Wild, just ebb and flow. The Knicks come out looking very good, coming out hot. Pacers kind of have their answer, but it's looking like even before Brunson goes out with his injury, that OG Anunoby was here to score and here to play. Without Mitchell Robinson, even though he's not a scorer, you felt an energy change amongst that roster saying, we all have to do more here, and OG was doing more. Cody, have you expected to see OG with that sort of aggression offensively before? I don't think I've ever seen him play with that level of intensity on offense.
Even the broadcast was saying, like, did he have this type of bag essentially when he was in Toronto? I mean, he took 19 shots and he didn't even play, the fourth quarter essentially. And he was driving and getting to his spots and knocking down threes and just consistently looking for his shot, which doesn't really feel like his game, but it just felt like OG thought to himself coming in, or maybe they brought it up in some type of film session where they said, we need you to be aggressive. We're best when you are. And he was like, all right, I'm in. And he just, from the get-go, was attacking the rim, like I said, getting to his spots, took 7 threes, knocked down 4 of them. So I didn't necessarily expect that. I was delighted to see it, especially having his points, rebounds, and assists tonight, and him doing it just with his points. But it was more offense from OG than I think I'd expect, but it was great to see. And it was just another one of those, hey, maybe Brunson's out, maybe they're going to over pursue him and they're going to leave some gaps and spaces, and I'm going to be the one to attack those. Because really on that floor, maybe Josh Hart, DiVincenzo's not necessarily a prolific driver of the basketball. He can put it on the floor, he can get to the rim, and he does have that athleticism, that bounce to be able to finish, but he's not probably somebody you're expecting to be just kind of going constantly into the paint. And with Brunson, like I said, doubled on times. OG just seemed to be the guy to step up, and it really opened up a lot for their offense.
Yeah, DiVincenzo seems to be a better finisher on cuts and passer on drives, if that makes sense. And that's kind of what I see from him. When he gets the ball on the ground or on the floor, whatever, off the dribble, and gets to the lane, like, he's finding Hartenstein, he's finding Hart or Precious, whatever. He's doing pretty good. He'll make the occasional lay in that situation. But when he's cutting, that's when you see him elevate and like throw down some of the dunks, which he had one that was a huge momentum swinger, and that was huge. And OG, obviously, once Brunson went down, like you kind of started to allude to there, his offensive intensity even went up another notch, and he was hitting threes. He's making drives. It was really a shame to see him go down. Now, you and I aren't doctors. We can't speculate. We don't know what's going to happen with him. But when you see that type of injury, you do get nervous because it's a lingerer. What have we heard about hamstrings forever? That they linger. They're hard to figure out. And we'll see what happens with him. We can get a report tomorrow that he's out for 2 weeks. And that's just the reality of it. You hope that it's going to be more of a, oh, he maybe could play Friday, but we're going to rest him. He'll probably be back Sunday. You hope for that, but you cannot count on that now. And now, did you expect to see anyone else off the bench, including Alec Burks, other than for 13 seconds before the halftime? Because I thought once OG went down, or maybe even just after Brunson was hurt, we'd see Burks for like 3 minutes, and we got 13 seconds.
It was so funny because I texted in our group chat after you were kind of asking, hey, let's see some Burks minutes, put him in for a couple minutes. And after he missed that shot at half, I was like, all right, that's the end of Burks. And I was saying it jokingly, and it was literally the end of Burks. He played, he played 1 minute, took the one shot. But I have to ask you this because it's going to be brought up in some way. The Knicks, Thibodeau's method is that he's going to play guys and he's going to stick with his guys. And
yep,
it's hard to ignore the fact that Mitchell's Robinson is now down and obviously Bogdanovich is out for the playoffs, and now you had Brunson tonight and you had OG tonight, and some of those are fluky, they're freak injuries. I'm really just asking the question, but when you hear hamstring, that's like is that a wear and tear thing? Is there anything to Tibbs potentially overplaying his guys and relying too heavily on his starting five? I mean, I know that numbers are down. I just mentioned all the injuries, and of course, Julius Randle's been out. But there is a way to kind of be a little bit more flexible with their minutes. So is there anything to that with Tibbs? Or are you just like, you know what, we're getting wins, and this is what it has to be right now?
There's something to it overall, Cody, but I don't see it in these particular instances. Like you said, these injuries are a little bit more on the fluke side. Brunson's foot injury tonight. He rolled his foot going out to cover a contest. And you could argue, does he roll that foot if he's not as tired? Maybe, maybe not. You could argue that for sure. The Mitch Robinson thing was more of the way he lands, and he's an injury-prone guy. He wasn't playing extraordinary minutes when he got hurt. Bojan was playing through an injury and got hurt diving on the ground for a different injury, right? So another one where, like, he got hurt, not because he was playing too much. The OG one is the one that's a real question mark. That's a soft tissue injury. Mm-hmm. That's a thing that you see happen when athletes are overextended, like from a minute standpoint, and then like physically overextending your legs and stuff. Like that's what happened to him. And I think OG in that specific instance, he was running at a pace that you very rarely see him run. And I think the way he reached for the ball, the way he was running to try to finish that layup is more indicative of the injury than his workload. And that's obviously me just speculating and me possibly being a little bit of a Tibbs defender. I don't think so, though, because, again, think about it in your head right now. How often do you see OG in like an all-out, full-fledged sprint? Like you see Josh Hart, you see Devo in those sprints much more frequently. OG's more of a glider. He's kind of gliding. He's so long that he doesn't have to sprint very frequently. And on that fast break, like he was hauling ass. He was getting after it to get to that fast break opportunity. And he extended to catch the ball. He took one more extension step, like a longer step than he's normally used to taking to try to get up and finish that ball. And that's what happened to the hammy. So I personally won't blame it on the workload in this instance, but obviously it's in the back of your head. And frankly, I sometimes think OG is going to pop a hamstring every time he jumps to the rim. I don't know. Sometimes just the way he jumps, it looks awkward, even though he's so powerful. So no, I'm not blaming that one on Tibbs, even though that would be the one to blame on Tibbs.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think OG had played every minute leading up to that. But again, Brunson goes down, and so someone has to step up. You kind of have to keep OG in at that point anyway. I really had to bring this up because it's going to be a conversation, a topic coming up going forward. So I was merely asking the question.
It's 100% a fair question to ask. And with the lead up to this game, I very much thought that Tibbs had to play other people. I know Burks was horrible for the Knicks this year when he was playing, and I still thought he needed to go out there because when it comes down to the Knicks offense, they don't have a lot of guys who can penetrate without help. They just don't. OG was doing it on sheer force tonight. Josh Hart does it in fast breaks, but I'm talking about half-court offense. If Brunson's not creating penetration or there's not a perfect screen or a perfect play drawn up, no one's creating penetration. And even though Burks shot like ass this year, he does create some good looks. He gets decent looks for himself, and we know he can make them. He didn't make them for the Knicks this year, but if you put him in for 3 or 4 minutes and he hits 1 or 2, you can see an Alec Burks game in reality. Like you can actually see it happening. At least I could. I don't know if you agree with that, Cody, but if I picture Alec Burks on the court in a playoff game and the offense goes, oh my God, there's 8 seconds left. I don't know what to do. Josh Hart's throwing the ball to Burks. Devo's throwing the ball to Burks. Everyone but Brunson is going to look at Burks and say, bro, can you do something here? Just like they did with Bojan the entire time he was on the court, because they know those guys can get to a spot to get a decent look. They didn't hit at their normal clip, but that doesn't mean they can't in these moments.
Yeah, Burks is obviously capable. He's done it his whole career. Sometimes he's frustrating because he takes harder shots than I think he needs to. And it's like, dude, like you're there, like you had it, but then you kind of faded and turned. Like even the shot he took today, I was like, I think there was probably a step forward that he could have taken and created a little bit of an easier look for himself. And then you're like, all right, I'm all in. It's just when he starts taking those bad shots, and you know, you don't want to be relying on Alec Burks, but you really might have to. So,
and now with OG
I don't know.
out,
I guess you kind of hope that you're not. You really kind of hope you're not, right? Because if Alec Burks is playing real meaningful minutes, I guess what does that say about the state of where you're at? But
I'm more saying like it's the second quarter. Hart's played 112 straight minutes in the series. We can't afford 4 minutes from Alec Burks. You know what I'm saying? Like that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking him to play crunch time. You know, but like, that's it. That's where I guess where I'm different. And maybe, you know, listen, Tibbs has done very well so far this playoff. He is playing great defensive schemes. He is letting the offense do what they do. And I mean, obviously Brunson deserves a load of the credit, but to give Hart 4 minutes maybe would be worth it, right? Like Deuce McBride, for as good as he's been, isn't a penetrator. Like he's not going to get in there by himself frequently. He'll hit his couple shots. He'll hit his threes occasionally. Sometimes you're going to need more. And now I'm going to be really curious with OG possibly being out for game 3 and hopefully not beyond. Who's going to play? Like it's not going to be Jacob Toppin. You know, who's it going to be? It has to be something. Are they going to play 6 guys on Friday night?
He would. Tibbs would. You know he would. He'd have Miles McBride play 44 minutes and McBride would have like 22 points and you know, I don't know. I mean, like, have you seen Shake Milton play at all? Is that Shake Milton that I'm looking at? I didn't even know he was on the roster. Is that him?
Yeah, put him in. Like, I'll watch Shake Milton play 3 minutes. Yeah. Listen, all it takes is a moment or two in a series. And if Shake Milton or Alec Burks come in and hit 2 shots in 3 minutes, the Garden, well, it's going to be in Indiana, but the place is going nuts. The team's hyped up around those guys. And if they miss the shots, you say, all right, get your ass back on the bench. Thanks for Josh Hart to get at least a sip of water. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, I agree, but I don't think Josh Hart's coming out of games for the simple fact that he doesn't want to, one. And really, I think he's the only one that I'm like super comfortable with just being like, actually just play him 48 minutes. He never seems to be tired. And like, it somehow doesn't seem to affect him in any negative way.
It doesn't even make sense. He is a machine.
It's unreal.
Eat more Mike and Ike's, Josh. I don't care. Eat whatever you're eating. Don't practice ever again in your life. Just keep doing whatever the hell you're doing. It's insane. It truly is like nothing we've seen before. And, you know, TJ McConnell, and actually
it's
a great
48 minutes of it.
It's 48 minutes of pure insanity, which is just incredible. But let's segue over and talk about more of the other stuff here, because I think one of the huge stories coming out of this game, more on the Indiana side that benefited the Knicks, is TJ McConnell. I don't know if you felt the same way, but I was scared out of hell of TJ McConnell, both sides of the ball. On offense, he was getting to his spots. He can't shoot threes to save his life, but he was getting to the elbows. He was, he had 7 assists in the first half. TJ McConnell was playing out of his mind, and he was making Brunson's life incredibly difficult. And he leaves the fourth quarter and doesn't come back? Is there been a more inexcusable coaching decision that you've seen in this playoff so far, Cody?
It's funny. I'm actually responsible for that solely because I needed 2 more points from TJ McConnell to complete my same game parlay. And so they were like, you already hit 1 tonight, Cody. Like, that's it for you. No more fun. So I think I have some type of blame to take there. But he had 12 assists in the game. He played 23 minutes. He is a tenacious yeah, you're welcome. He's a tenacious defender. He's a pest, a menace, and he runs an offense. Like, he's an old school style point guard who runs an offense, who's I mean, it's kind of funny to say, but he's kind of a mid-range assassin. Like, when he pulls up from that 12-foot type of area right below the free throw line, you might as well just call it a dunk. Like, it's gonna drop. And he crossed over on McBride, got to the rim, put some English on it, finishes, and then they're like, yeah, actually, I think I've seen enough out of you. We're going to go back to our starters, who every single one of their plus minus was like negative double digits. Meanwhile, TJ McConnell and Obi Toppin are absolutely on fire, and they are not to be seen in that fourth quarter, even as the Knicks start pulling away. Like, I like Rick Carlisle. I think he's an excellent coach. I'm sure he's probably a little bit more basketball savvy than I am, but I was scratching my head. Stan Van Gundy rather was asking, I think you got to get McConnell back in. He used Brother Brunson. He's at least making it hard on him. And not to mention, I mean, even though I already did, what he did on the offensive end, he was a two-way presence, and I think he kind of let the Knicks off the hook a little bit by keeping him on the bench in that fourth quarter. And McConnell, they went to him a few times, and he looked pissed off over there on the bench.
He was chirping at fans. He was getting into anybody he could. And I bet he was pissed that he didn't go back in that game. And I understand it, frankly. I really do. And I think he's making that elbow jump shot every single time he takes it. I mean, I remember one of the most vivid memories for no good reason in my life is TJ McConnell hitting a turnaround baseline fadeaway when he was on the Philadelphia 76ers for a buzzer beater to beat them, when it was like literally the trust the process ass cheek Sixers, and TJ McConnell hits that shot. I'll never forget it. I don't know why. He's killed us forever. That, in my eyes, I don't know if he has or not, but he did that time, and he has this series, and I will not give that up. But the Pacers let us off the hook. Now, Cody, here's a question for you. All this talk, every single game. Well, when I say every single game, it's been 2 games. So let me be clear. All this talk, both games so far, is that the Pacers bench is one of the best in the leagues. They lead the league in bench points for the entire season. They are just annihilating the Knicks in bench points, which is obvious, but it's happening in troves. And yet in these moments that matter most, you don't see any of these dudes. You're looking at guys like Shepherd, who's hitting threes left and right, McConnell, who's cooking. Obi had one of the best games you've ever seen him play, and none of these guys are on the court. Are they making a mistake by going back to their starters? Because clearly they are getting numbers and they are playing better with their bench on the floor.
It felt very status quo of Rick Carlisle tonight to just kind of be like, this is the rotation and this is how we do it. We've gotten our starters their rest. Now it's time for them to come back in. That's our system. That's our philosophy. That's what we're doing. But if you're watching the game, if you're part of it, and you said it already, like as Knicks fans, you're like, oh, thank God he's off the floor. And he just didn't ride that hot hand, and he had 2 of them to go to on his bench. And there's guys that you could have subbed out. And, I mean, Miles Turner is probably, he's the guy with Hartenstein, but you could have gone smaller and go with, even if it's Obi Toppin there, right? And you kind of take the Oklahoma City approach to this and team rebound and box out and do things that way. Miles Turner didn't really have his best game. So it's just curious. Neesmith as well could have been pulled. I mean, he didn't have his best game. And usually, he's a really good player. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what should have happened. Just it felt in the moment like they got bailed out. The broadcast is saying it. The results show it. And I wonder if there is that type of adjustment for them going forward, because they could have used it tonight and it might have changed the outcome of the game.
Yeah. And going forward, you have to look out for Siakam, because OG was doing a great job on him. And clearly when OG went out, Siakam getting those little middies was a lot easier. On Josh Hart, it's a lot easier than OG to get those little fadeaways from the elbow. But yeah, I completely agree. I think Carlisle coached like his base game plan, like it was game 72 or 72, 42. Right? It really felt like a base game plan from Rick Carlisle there, not anything special. And the one thing you got to give Tibbs, even though he plays only 7 guys, we've seen it in the Sixers series. One game he went with Hartenstein. The next game he went with Robinson. If DiVincenzo didn't have it, McBride was on the floor. And like, that's the opposite of what we think is Tibbs' MO. And here's Rick Carlisle, who they're both, legendary coaches in their own right. Carlisle has the ring to prove it too. And
Right.
it felt status quo was a great way to put it, Cody, because their most impactful players were all on the bench, other than Halliburton, who obviously shot the lights out in this game. We're all on the bench in this game when it mattered most. And that step back three from Miles Turner, probably one of the worst shots I've seen in a while.
I was like, oof, thank God. It was still 8 to 10 seconds on the shot clock. I was like, oh, thanks.
Dude,
I appreciate that. It was so highly contested too by another big.
Yeah, he shot it with 10 seconds on the shot clock. For a second, I'm like, did he think there was 1 second on the shot clock? Like, what happened there? That was terrible.
Thank you, Miles Turner.
Yeah, thank you, Miles Turner. And I don't know if we're having a little delay issue here, Cody, with our back and forth. I think we might be.
Seems like a slight one.
It's all right. Listen, we're fighting through it. Just like the Knicks. We're grinding, baby. We're grinding.
This is a gritty podcast, Pete.
It's a gritty podcast for sure. Hopefully I'll fix it in post so no one else notices. But nonetheless, here we are. The New York Knicks up 2-0 on the series. In regards to games 1 and 2, I don't know what more else there is to say. We do just have to, one more time, give some flowers to Jalen Brunson, who fought back from the injury. We talked about his gravity in the second half, even just being out there. But then he goes out there and hits some incredible shots from three, from mid-range, a few inside by the rim, inside the paint. And there is really just this nature about how he plays the game that seems like it doesn't necessarily matter what they do to him. And the most important part to it is that when they threw doubles at him, the Knicks were absolutely ready to respond. So my question to you, Cody, is there something you see to actually throw Brunson off in the next couple games here?
The best thing that the Pacers have done so far was step on his foot or whatever they did to keep him out of the rest of the first half. I mean, and it's not even, and we know the Pacers aren't like a defensive juggernaut. And this goes back to game 5 when we came on afterwards. And this is like the thing where not all 40-point or big time scoring performances are created equal. But in that game 5, we kind of all felt like he's dribbling the air out of the ball a little bit. It's a little too ISO heavy. And game 6, it was just right decision after right decision, step on the gas when I need to. And he's carried that over into this series and even tonight. And, game 1, he makes that pass out to DiVincenzo for the biggest shot of the night. He saw the double, made the right play. That is the level that when Jalen Brunson is doing that, there is nothing to do to stop him because he's going to get he's going to get to his spots. He's just so crafty. He's not the most athletic guy, and that's probably why I love his game because not the most athletic guy myself, but he's so able to control his body in ways and just get to his spots and use up fakes and use just every little thing in his bag. And then again, that last piece, when he's making the right play and trusting his teammates, trusting the offense, that's when this Knicks team is the most dangerous.
And on top of that, Donte DiVincenzo absolutely showed up again. Another game where he shot very well, 6 of 12 from 3, 28 points overall. The Knicks didn't even really do it with tons of free throws here tonight. If you look down the line, no one had more than 6 free throw attempts, yet they were 18 of 22, which is obviously a very strong percentage. Pacers were not hitting their free throws, but Donte DiVincenzo deserves another shout because there was a point in that Sixers series where he was playing 20 minutes in a game. And he's back to 44 minutes tonight, 28 points. He made some plays on defense. He had some assists, and the shot looks crisp. So not much else to say about Hart or DiVincenzo. They're just playing their best ball. So, Cody, I don't know if you have anything else to add on game 2 or anything else specific to Pacers Knicks. If so, shoot it.
I do now have one quick thing because I just got an update and it kind of goes back to what you're asking before. But Rick Carlisle was saying something about the officiating, saying that they, he thinks that they were bad, this and that. Obviously, I guess we expected it, but there you go. People are complaining. I saw somebody, people tweeting about it after game 1 too. So people are always going to have something to say, I guess is the point. But the Knicks have earned both of these wins, no matter what team you're a fan of or what game you've been watching.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, if you're a Pacers fan right now, you're looking at a game where, every single bench player in game one played above their head, and Siakam played well, Miles Turner played well, and you come up short. In game two, your bench played above its head. Tyrese Halliburton shot the lights out, had 34 points and 9 assists. He actually showed up and hit some big time shots, and you're sitting here 0-2. Now, granted, they're both in New York. You're going back to Indiana. No series is a series until someone loses at home. We know this. This is not over, clearly, especially with all the Knicks injuries. So you can't take that for granted. But, coaches are smart, and they do this the right way typically. And Carlisle's not one of the coaches who I expect to be, just throwing things in the air and throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping that a complaint sticks and gets them some calls. However, do I agree with him completely here? Not necessarily, but that's okay. The Pacers probably get a couple extra calls in the next game. That's all right. I think what he said in game one made more sense. He's like, oh, we're not going to get calls in this building. And that makes sense. That's home court advantage. It happens all the time. It's human nature. With game two, I don't think I can think of more than one or two calls either way that kind of didn't work out, right? So I don't know what calls he's referring to. I'm sure he's going to put in his official complaints about specific plays, but it is what it is. That you expect it, Cody, like you said. And I just love when fans who are fans of no team saying that the NBA is rigged for the Knicks. Where the hell's the NBA been for the last 25 years, bro? Nope. Nowhere. Like, what are we talking about here? If the Knicks were, it was rigged for the Knicks, they probably would have had some more luck in the few playoffs that they were in their freaking history. Like, come on. It's not rigged for
or
the
in
Knicks,
the draft lottery. I mean, you could play it
let's be
back
real.
now, but not too long ago, they got the third pick when Ja Morant and Zion Williamson were available. So it's kind of whatever. It's dispelled. I just dispelled it.
Yeah, it is what it is. Oh, well. All right. Well, that's game two for the Indiana Pacers Knicks series. On to Indiana, game three. We'll wait for news on OG Anunoby, but we're not done yet on today's podcast. We got a couple of quick hitters for you here with Cody O'Connor, because we got some other stuff that happened so far this week, as well as across the NBA. And the first thing first, Cody, the floor is yours. Nikola Jokic wins his third MVP in 4 years. I don't think you loved it. I don't think you hated it. But what's your take on the outcome of the NBA's MVP?
Well, I'll say this is tough, right? Because Joker is the best player in the NBA. To me, there's really no question about that. I know they're down 2-0, so when this comes out, it's like, oh, maybe Anthony Edwards is. It's like, please shut up. Not yet. But Joker is so deserving, but I wonder what it is that anybody has to do. If it wasn't SGA this year, what does someone have to do to win the MVP? Because they're 57-25 in a juggernaut West. They leaped up 10 spots from last year to become the 1 seed. Okay. Now, I think there's some arguments like they all had the same record, so you can't really do the seeding thing. So why is OKC the 1 seed for anybody who's not sure? It's because they own the tiebreak. Why do they own the tiebreak? It's because in Denver, with less than 5 seconds left, SGA went down the court, coast to coast, down 1, fade away from the free throw line, hits it, wins the game. They own the tiebreaker over Denver. He's got over 50 30-point games this year, so as consistent as it gets, leading the second youngest team in the NBA. It's the youngest number 1 seed in the West in NBA history to that 1 seed. I just don't know what else is being asked. This Thunder team takes on the persona of their best player, of SGA. Why do they play with such a calm, cool collectiveness? Why do they play with that quiet confidence? It's because you don't see SGA get his feathers ruffled. It's because he's so calm, and in those big moments, they remain that way. And he is the unsung hero, the leader. It's no question who's the best player. And again, like, it's hard to just be like, oh, well, Joker this. Like, I'm not going to try and take down Joker. I'm just trying to elevate SGA and just tell you just how good he was. He led the league in steals, 2+ per game, 6.2 assists per game, which was a career high, 5.5 rebounds, 30 points per game. He was third in the NBA in scoring. Again, I don't know what else it would possibly take to have taken the MVP. And I guess the other thing is Joker was just that insane, just that silly. His stats are unbelievable. His advanced numbers are all through the roof. But that was already a championship roster. And this was a team that was largely the same from last year, except adding rookie Chet Holmgren to it. And they went from the 10 seed to the 1 seed. My whole point is, my whole argument for SGA is, what else do you have to see from him for it to have been his?
Well said, Cody O'Connor. I like how you put that one there, because so often people want to just drag down the other guy to put up your guy. And you didn't do that really at all. And I don't think Jokic deserves to be teared down. I think you and I are on the same page that he's absolutely out of this world phenomenal, even though they're down 0-2 to the Timberwolves right now. But great point by you. And the way you frame it there, it makes a whole lot of sense, especially with that big moment in Denver with the game winner. When people don't win in Denver very frequently, of course, until these playoffs when the Timberwolves just did it twice. All right, one more quick hitter here for you, Cody. And this one's a bit of an easy layup for you. But Christian Scott on the New York Mets. Christian Scott debut this past weekend. The big pitching arm, the big prospect for the New York Mets. They're desperate for some starting pitching. What'd you think about our rookie's first performance?
Well, I don't want to overreact, but I think he might be Jacob deGrom, because he threw 6 2/3 in his debut, gave up 1 earned, and the Mets found a way to lose the game. And I'm like, oh my God, we got him. He's back. We've got Jake. So he was very, very impressive, though. He was very impressive. His stuff looked good. His stuff has looked good from all the clips that I had seen. And you know what, the thing that impressed me the most was, and in his debut, the nerves are high, butterflies are flowing, and he gives up 3 straight hits to start that game. It's, I believe, first and third, nobody out, and a run already in. He gets a strikeout, gets the ground ball double play, gets out of it with just the 1 run, and then just settles in. But to show that type of balls in your first MLB start, it shows me a little bit of something about who you are. So I am not going to overreact, but it was impressive. I hope he's here to stay, because he'd be a really nice added element to that starting rotation, especially if you're getting Cody Senga back soon. And I did call in the fan on a Saturday night, so you could imagine.
Oh yeah.
And I brought up McGill and Peterson, and I just got to clear it up. My whole point with them was, dog days of summer, get depth rotation. Just make sure you have that pitching depth, because you never know. But Christian Scott would be a really nice add to them.
There you go. That was great. I don't want to overreact, but I think he's Jacob deGrom. That really sent me, Cody. I appreciate you. That's all we got on Subway Sports Talk, bro. That was a great episode. The Knicks are up 2-0, going to Indiana for a Friday night Knicks in Indy. Shout out to my boy Nick Saletti. I watched Game 6 with him in Hoboken at a bar when they beat the Sixers, Electric Factory, and he was just saying, I really hope the Knicks don't play on Friday, because he's getting married. And him and my boy Alec Argento, huge not friend of the pod, host of the pod. He's been on a million episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be locked in to enjoy Nick's wedding. So big shout out to Nick Saletti. And I hope the Knicks win for you, Nick, on Friday night. But please don't ruin your wedding and go to the bar and watch the Knicks game. Have this one. Enjoy it. OG might be out. Take this one off. I know Hart doesn't take off any minutes, but neither should your heart. Go love your future wife. That was weirdly apropos. All right, Subway Sports Talk. That's what we got on the podcast today. Don't forget to subscribe and review on your podcast app. Don't forget to hit us on socials at Subway Sports Talk. We're trying to cook up a lot of content on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube Shorts as well. So subscribe and hit the notification bell on YouTube. But for Cody O'Connor, I'm Pete Kennedy. That's all we got. Cheers.